Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. It's hard to describe just how quickly things have unraveled in Washington. Just a few weeks ago, the Commanders were being talked about as one of the toughest, most complete teams in the NFC. The kind of squad that could grind out ugly wins and maybe, just maybe, sneak back into that postseason conversation. But then Sunday night happened. Under the bright lights of prime time, in front of a national audience that expected a bounce-back performance, the Commanders didn't just stumble, they collapsed. A 38-14 loss to the Seattle Seahawks that left the entire fan base asking one simple, painful question. What on earth was Dan Quinn thinking? Let's be honest, when a game is that far gone, when the scoreboard reads 38-7 with less than 8 minutes to play, no one expects the starting quarterback to still be out there taking hits. But there was Jayden Daniels, Washington's prized young signal caller, dropping back one more time, trying to salvage pride from a game long out of reach. Then it happened. A crushing hit, a dislocated elbow, and a silence that swept through the stadium like a cold wind. Daniels lay on the turf in visible pain, and the cameras cut to Quinn, standing on the sideline, hands on his knees, that familiar look of disbelief on his face, a look that's haunted him before. When Quinn faced the media on Monday, he looked every bit the man who knew he'd made a terrible mistake. His voice was steady, but his eyes gave him away. "That's on me," he said. "I wanted to finish strong. I wanted to see our guys fight through adversity. But I should have made a different call." You could feel the weight of those words. Accountability is one thing, but accountability doesn't bring your quarterback back any faster. And in Washington, where hope has been so fragile for so long, this one hurts more than most. Because losing Jayden Daniels doesn't just hurt the offense. It rips the heart right out of a franchise that was starting to believe again. The aftermath has been brutal. Veteran cornerback Marshawn Lattimore and receiver Luke McCaffrey both suffered season-ending injuries in the same game. The locker room, once full of swagger, now feels like a triage unit. And the man at the center of it all, Dan Quinn, suddenly finds himself back under a spotlight he thought he'd escaped. Because as Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk pointed out, this isn't just another coaching misstep. This feels like a defining moment. Florio even drew the parallel that every fan immediately thought of. It's Dan Quinn's Washington version of 28-3. For anyone who doesn't remember, that's the infamous Super Bowl collapse that still defines his tenure with the Atlanta Falcons. The moment when Quinn's career trajectory changed forever. Florio didn't stop there. He said that if things don't turn around in 2026, this might be the beginning of the end for Quinn in Washington. Harsh. Maybe. But when you're a head coach in the NFL, perception can be as deadly as performance. Fans see a pattern, a coach who doesn't know when to pull back, who lets the moment get away from him, who trusts his instincts too much for his own good. And the media? They smell blood in the water. The narrative is already forming. Dan Quinn, the defensive-minded coach with a history of late-game blunders, might be losing his grip again. Now, to be fair, it's not like Washington's entire season comes down to one bad decision. Injuries happen. Bad luck happens. The NFL doesn't give you any mercy. But what makes this situation feel different is that it was avoidable. Daniels didn't need to be on that field. The game was lost. The scoreboard told the story. The only thing Quinn needed to protect was his quarterback, his franchise cornerstone, his future. Instead, that future's now in jeopardy. And depending on how severe the injury really is, it could change the entire direction of this team. And yet, amid all the chaos, there's still a glimmer of hope. Or at least, there's a plan. Because let's face it, the Commanders can't roll into next week with Marcus Mariota under center and pretend everything's fine. The offense looked stagnant, predictable, and completely disjointed once Daniels went down. If they want to keep their playoff hopes alive, they need someone who can step in right now and steady the ship. Enter Kirk Cousins. Yeah, you heard that right. The same Kirk Cousins who once wore burgundy and gold, who left Washington years ago under a cloud of franchise tag drama, might just be the team's best option in 2025. Cousins is sitting in Atlanta right now, backing up rookie sensation Michael Penix Jr., and while the Falcons have insisted all season that they're keeping Cousins as insurance, this might be the perfect moment for Washington to make a call they never thought they'd make again. Cousins isn't a long-term fix, but he doesn't have to be. What he brings is stability, leadership, and a calm presence that this locker room desperately needs. Reports suggest Washington could offer a 2026 fourth-round pick, a 2026 fifth-round pick, and about $2 million in cash considerations to sweeten the deal. In return, they'd get Cousins and a late-round pick swap. On paper, that might sound like a lot for a 37-year-old quarterback. But in the context of what's at stake, it's a no-brainer. The Commanders have too much talent on both sides of the ball to waste an entire season waiting for Daniels to heal. They have Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson Jr., and a defense that, when healthy, can still wreck games. Cousins gives them a fighting chance to stay afloat until their young leader returns. For Atlanta, the move also makes sense. Penix Jr. is clearly the future. Cousins is expensive, taking up $27.5 million of cap space next season, and serves little purpose other than sitting on the bench and offering mentorship that could just as easily come from the coaching staff. By trading him, the Falcons free up money, gain draft picks, and can accelerate their rebuild in the trenches, exactly where they've struggled the most. It's a win-win on paper, but only if Washington is willing to take that leap of faith. Still, there's a deeper question here, one that fans and analysts can't stop debating. Does this kind of desperation move signal the beginning of the end for Dan Quinn? Because once a coach starts making short-term, reactionary decisions, it usually means the pressure's getting to him. The Commanders' front office has publicly backed him, insisting he's the right man to lead the rebuild, but privately? You have to imagine there's frustration. Last year's run to the NFC Championship feels like ancient history now. The team that once looked disciplined and physical suddenly looks fragile, both physically and mentally. And it all ties back to that one night in Seattle. When you think about the parallels, it's hard not to draw the line straight back to that Super Bowl meltdown. Back then, it was about letting off the gas too soon, about losing control of a moment that should have defined Quinn's career in a positive way. This time, it's the opposite, pushing too hard, keeping players in too long, chasing a fight that was already lost. Different mistakes, same theme, an inability to manage the moment. And in the NFL, those moments define legacies. The next few weeks are going to be crucial. If the Commanders can rally, if they can scrape together a couple of wins behind a veteran quarterback and keep their playoff hopes alive, then maybe this becomes just a painful footnote in an otherwise resilient season. But if the slide continues, if the locker room fractures, if the fans turn, if the national media keeps hammering this hot seat narrative, then Dan Quinn could find himself facing a very different kind of fight by the end of the year. Because make no mistake, Washington isn't a patient organization anymore. Not with a new ownership group hungry to prove they're serious about building a contender. Not with a fan base that's been burned too many times by false dawns. And not with a franchise quarterback whose health now hangs in the balance. The leash is shorter, the expectations are higher, and the margin for error is razor thin. Maybe Quinn can turn it around. Maybe this injury, as devastating as it is, becomes a rallying cry. Maybe Jaden Daniels comes back stronger. Maybe the locker room responds. Maybe this is the moment that forges the kind of toughness Quinn has always preached about. But it's just as likely that this becomes the story that defines his Washington tenure. The one that everyone looks back on and says, that's where it started to unravel. And that's what makes this situation so fascinating and so heartbreaking all at once. Because Dan Quinn isn't a bad coach. He's respected, beloved by his players, and known as one of the best defensive minds in football. But sometimes, even great coaches make catastrophic decisions. Sometimes the moment gets too big. And when that happens on national TV, in a city starving for success, the consequences last far longer than one bad night. Whether it's his 28-3 moment or not, one thing's for sure. This will be remembered as the night Dan Quinn's Washington dream hit the wall. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. Washington is on the verge of saying goodbye to one of its most electrifying stars, and fans are already bracing for a heartbreak that could shake the very core of the franchise. Rumors are swirling around the league, whispers that have been growing louder in the corridors of NFL chatter, and the name at the center of it all is none other than Terry McLaurin. Yes, Terry McLaurin, the dynamic wide receiver who has become synonymous with grit, determination, and sheer playmaking ability in Washington may very well be donning a new jersey after the 2025 season. It's a prospect that has left fans divided, analysts speculating, and the team itself in a delicate balancing act between loyalty and financial pragmatism. The very idea of McLaurin leaving the Commanders is sending shockwaves through the fan base, triggering debates on social media, podcasts, and late-night sports shows about what this means not just for Washington, but for the landscape of the entire NFL. Terry McLaurin's journey with the Commanders has been nothing short of remarkable. Drafted in the third round of the 2019 NFL Draft, McLaurin quickly became a household name, known for his ability to stretch defenses, make acrobatic catches, and consistently produce even when the quarterback situation was far from ideal. Over the past 6 seasons, he's built a reputation not just as a reliable target, but as a true leader on and off the field. His connection with the fans, the way he fights for every inch of yardage, and the way he celebrates every big play with that infectious energy has cemented him as a franchise icon. Yet, despite all of his contributions and the adoration he's earned, whispers of a potential departure have grown louder, fueled by the realities of salary cap pressures, contract negotiations, and the ever-present business side of professional football that often collides harshly with fans' emotions. The timing of this news could not be more critical. As the 2025 season progresses, insiders hint at tense discussions happening behind closed doors. McLaurin, now entering the prime of his career, has reportedly expressed a desire for stability and a chance to compete at the highest level without constant uncertainty. Meanwhile, Washington's management faces tough choices, balancing roster needs, future draft picks, and the constraints of a salary cap that leaves little room for error. According to sources close to the situation, there is a genuine possibility that the team may not be able to match the kind of long-term contract McLaurin could command on the open market, leading to a scenario where a parting of ways becomes increasingly likely. For fans who have watched McLaurin rise from a promising rookie to an undeniable star, the prospect of losing him is almost surreal, a bitter pill that threatens to overshadow even the most optimistic projections for the team's future. The ripple effects of McLaurin's potential exit extend far beyond Washington. League insiders are already speculating which franchises could make a move, and it's easy to imagine a bidding war igniting among teams desperate to add a proven wide receiver with elite skills and an established track record. Teams in desperate need of offensive firepower are rumored to be monitoring the situation closely, with some reportedly preparing hypothetical trade packages that could involve draft picks, young talent, and cash considerations. The very thought of McLaurin leaving has sparked feverish debates among sports analysts, who ponder not only the immediate impact on the Commanders' offense, but also the broader implications for team chemistry, leadership dynamics, and the shifting balance of power in the NFC East. Could Washington rebound without him? Or will this departure mark the beginning of a new era defined by transition, rebuilding, and tough choices that test both management and the loyal fan base? For McLaurin himself, this moment represents both opportunity and uncertainty. On one hand, the prospect of a fresh start, perhaps with a team poised for a playoff run or one that offers him the chance to cement his legacy in a new city, is undeniably exciting. On the other hand, leaving Washington would mean saying goodbye to the city that embraced him, the fans who have celebrated his every highlight, and the teammates who have shared the highs and lows of NFL life over the years. Those closest to McLaurin suggest that he is deeply conflicted, torn between loyalty to the franchise that gave him his first chance and the realistic consideration of what is best for his career at a critical juncture. Conversations behind the scenes reportedly revolve around timing, contract structures, and potential destinations, with the understanding that every decision carries weighty consequences, not just financially but emotionally, both for McLaurin and the Commanders organization. Social media, of course, has exploded with reactions, ranging from disbelief to outright anger to hopeful optimism. Fans flood platforms with messages of support, pleas to retain him, and even speculation about creative ways the franchise could make a deal work. Comment sections are filled with what-if scenarios. What if Washington trades for a superstar quarterback to give McLaurin the weapons he deserves? What if the team restructures its roster to make room for his contract? What if he leaves and Washington suffers a prolonged offensive drought? Each question underscores the central tension of the situation. One man's potential move could redefine the trajectory of a franchise that has been searching for consistency and identity in recent years. Analysts argue over whether losing McLaurin would be a symbolic setback, a strategic miscalculation, or an inevitable step in the evolution of a team navigating the harsh realities of the NFL. Even the locker room dynamic is reportedly being affected. Sources indicate that teammates are acutely aware of the uncertainty surrounding McLaurin's future. Leadership meetings, practice sessions, and team interactions are all tinged with a sense of anticipation, as players prepare mentally for the possibility of losing a key figure in their offensive unit. Coaches, too, face a delicate balancing act, needing to maintain focus on the present season while managing the narrative surrounding McLaurin's future. Every play, every reception, every highlight now carries an undercurrent of what comes next, adding a layer of tension that only heightens the drama surrounding this potential departure. It's a storyline that blends human emotion, business strategy, and pure football passion into a saga that captivates not just fans in Washington, but the broader NFL audience eager to witness how this chapter unfolds. Rumors suggest that any official announcement might not come until the end of the 2025 season, allowing the Commanders to explore options, evaluate their roster, and gauge McLaurin's intentions fully. Yet, even in the absence of official confirmation, the mere possibility of this departure has energized discussions across sports media. Podcasts feature analysts debating the likelihood of McLaurin moving on. YouTube channels dissect highlight reels to remind fans of what might be lost, and Twitter threads light up with hypothetical trade scenarios and contract projections. The speculation is so intense that it has almost become a sport in itself, a game of predictions, negotiations, and dreams, where fans try to anticipate moves before they officially occur. And in the center of it all stands McLaurin, calm, focused, and aware that his next decision could define the next phase of his professional life. Looking at the broader picture, McLaurin's potential exit from Washington is emblematic of the tension inherent in professional sports. The clash between loyalty, fan expectations, and the unforgiving realities of business. Teams must make hard choices, balancing the desire to retain beloved players against the strategic necessity of long-term planning. Players must weigh personal ambitions against the emotional ties they've forged with their team and community. And fans, caught in the middle, are left to reconcile their passion for the game with the inevitability of change. In McLaurin's case, the situation is heightened by the intensity of his impact on the field and his deep connection with the Washington faithful. Losing him would not just be a loss of talent. It would be the departure of an icon, a player who embodies the spirit of resilience, excellence, and dedication that fans celebrate year after year. Ultimately, what makes this story so compelling is that it is still in motion. No deals have been finalized, no statements have been issued, and the air is thick with uncertainty. Every game, every highlight, every moment McLaurin takes the field for Washington over the remainder of 2025 will carry a new weight, a subtle urgency, as fans savor each play with the knowledge that these could be the final chapters of a remarkable tenure. Analysts, commentators, and insiders will continue to speculate, while McLaurin himself navigates the delicate balance between personal ambition and the legacy he leaves behind in Washington. And as the NFL world watches closely, one thing is certain. The story of Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders is entering a phase that promises drama, emotion, and unforgettable moments, whether on the field or in the hearts of fans who have cheered him from the very beginning. In the end, the rumor of his departure is more than just speculation. It's a reminder of how fleeting, intense, and deeply human the world of professional football truly is. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.